We went there the next summer and we had a magical day. It was the first time I got to meet his parents in person because we didn't get to see them on our last trip. We'd had video calls from Miami and we just had a magical day in the capital. And then we went to the seacoast to our friend's condo he gave us for the week. And it was like just a really perfect night. And I remember up until that point in my life, it was first time I'd felt like everything was perfect. There were no problems. Like life was just really wonderful and everything felt aligned.
Have you ever kept moving through grief, trusting that momentum was the same as healing, only to realize years later that your body had been keeping score the whole time? Chanoa Inez built her life's work from exactly that reckoning. This is the Your Next Success podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Carolyn Sagal. I am a life-first career coach and strategist on a mission to normalize questioning your career, because I believe each of us is made on purpose for a purpose only we can fulfill. The Your Next Success podcast is where we explore how to build a career that truly fuels your life. We talk about self-discovery, smart job search strategies, professional growth, and you will hear stories from people who have navigated big career transitions themselves so you can create a life-first career and become your own version of authentic success. Chanoa Inez is an author, advanced meditator, and a personal brand strategist who built a copywriting career helping others communicate who they are before a profound loss called her to do that work for herself. She is the author of Dream On: How to Create the New Life of Your Dreams After Upheaval or Loss, and is the creator of the Magnetize Your Personal Brand program, which helps business owners develop their presence from the inside out. Chanoa Inez has always been someone who moves toward beauty and the life she can picture. She followed that instinct through cities and careers, all the way to a moment that changed everything. What she found on the other side of grief and the inner work that made the return possible is what this conversation is about. Let's listen in. Chanoa Inez, welcome to Your Next Success. I am so thrilled to be having this conversation with you.
It's so great to be here, Carolyn. Thank you.
So we are going to get to all of the amazing things that you do. You are an author. You help so many people with their transformations and transitions. We're going to get to all of that beauty that you put out into the world. But I'd love to dial it way back. Can you help us understand, where were you born and what was life like for the very youngest Chanoa?
I was born in upstate New York. Well, technically not upstate, but an hour out of the city. So I'm not from New York City. And life was really interesting. My grandmother mostly, she kind of like, co-raised me as a child because my mother was in college and getting different degrees. And, me and my friends, I had a core group of friends who some of them, their parents were stay-at-home parents. So we had all these like little adventures. We spent a lot of time outside. There was always somebody
awesome.
who could, kind of supervise one of our next whims. And there was a lot of imagination involved. We'd put on little plays and make costumes, and there was always something very interesting going on.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, did you have a certain role that you usually went to in those things? Like, were you the one designing the play or designing the costume or coming up with the plot?
No, well, I did help with the plot, but it really depends on what the next project was. Yeah, so
That's cool.
that is interesting, though. Storytelling.
Yeah,
for a
so
long
your
time.
core group, like even at that very, very young age, you kind of took turns.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
that's
sure.
cool. What was your mom studying?
She's a registered nurse, so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
My mom's a nurse also, and she took me to some of her college classes. I just thought, well, that's kind of neat when I kind of recall that. She's like, yeah, I was taking you to some of my finals because I didn't have anywhere else to take you, and the professors were so kind that they let me come, and people loved holding you and all this, and I'm like, what? Is this why I love learning?
Yeah. Well, I love reading, and my mother took me to the library with her often, so that's really, I can relate in that parallel.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, so when you started getting into school, were there any particular subjects that you enjoyed more than others?
I I mean, again, I was a big reader, big reader. I knew all the librarians and loved going to bookstores, but I don't think any specific topic in those early years. I just really loved school. And then when we moved to Florida, it was very different. Our schools were much more challenging in New York than in Florida. I mean, I always had like straight A's as a young child, but in Florida, I really should have skipped 3 grades academically, but I couldn't do that emotionally, you know?
Yeah.
So they didn't have me do that. So I would just ask for extra homework for fun, honestly, because it was really, it took a few years for me to like,
I get it.
yeah. And then I started taking more advanced classes, so it'd be more challenging. But also I had, help. So not only were the schools more challenging in New York, but my grandmother would teach me outside of school. So would my mother. So like everything like, how to multiply and things like that. I always learned the summer before at home. So I was
Oh,
always
wow.
ahead. Yeah, in those
And
early years.
what kind of interests or passions did your grandmother have to be teaching you all of these things? Was she just a wise woman or like what?
Yeah, I guess that's just it. She was very wise. She's still with us. She's 101, and she has
Wow.
affected many people's lives in great ways. But she
Oh,
taught me how to read when I was 3, so I have to give her
that's
credit.
amazing.
She had a lifelong passion there.
Outside of school, were there any particular, as you were, and you're realizing, yeah, you pretty much take on well to everything. Maybe because reading was such a strong foundation, you were able to pick up any subject.
Mhm.
Outside of that, were there any activities or things that you enjoyed more
Uh,
so than others?
in elementary school, or
I don't know when you moved to Florida. I don't know what age that was,
okay,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I was a Girl Scout. I was a daisy in the little blue uniforms, and then a brownie. And I wanted to continue when I moved to Florida, but they didn't have uniforms, so I was, very
Wait.
disappointed. I said, I'm not
You
going to
didn't.
wear a T-shirt that reads Girl Scouts USA and khaki shorts. So actually, I left. I asked for permission to stop doing Girl Scouts. So when we moved there, and then I didn't play soccer either. The activities were very different. I think just how everything was set up, the convenience to my school, what my
Yeah.
friends were also doing, they were also in that. So the parents could take turns, taking us there. So my
Yeah.
activities changed a lot when I went to Florida. But I was lucky because my next door neighbor, she knocked on our door early in the morning the day after we moved there. And apparently she'd seen me move in and she was just like a little adult. She knocked on our door by herself and she told my mother, she's like, where's your daughter? She looks like my age. I want to meet her. And she ended up being my
That's
best friend.
amazing.
And
Oh,
so that was nice. We had all of our, adventures and we loved, I was a big horror fan, oddly enough, as a child. So we would read all the scary books and watch, all these scary movies. And some of it was just too much. And I was like, you can't watch that. So we'd like hide our scary books and we have to take turns hiding that. What's it called? Real Scary Stories. I just made a remake, the
oh yes,
movie.
yes, yes.
Yeah, all that stuff. So it was great. But, riding our bikes and spending a lot of time outside still. So a lot of activities, I would say. Outside, I loved playing outside with friends. But I think I did a lot. I still did that in Florida, but I got to do it a lot more in New York. I think just logistically or how everything was set up, how close my friends lived nearby.
Yeah. Now, what age was that transition, the
And
moving?
9.
But so lucky for you, you meet this beautiful, amazing soul who becomes your friend, who was
Yeah.
very brave to even come over, and that kind of set you up for success with that. Now, how about moving into middle school, high school? Did you add on or shift any other interests or activities?
Middle school was very complicated for me. It was just like a very complicated time in my life. High school, I did do like a morning, kind of like the school news. I did get to go on that for a bit. That was interesting. That was like super random. I think that might have only been like 1 year. I don't know if that's like 11th grade or 12th grade. But what I wanted to do career-wise was very different, in those
Yeah.
times. So
What did you think it was going to be?
I don't know if it's because I watched so much X-Files or whatever, The Silence of the Lambs, but I wanted to be an FBI agent when I was in middle school. And then later, I didn't want to be that, but then I decided I wanted to be a doctor. There are a lot of medical professionals in my family. And so then I wanted to actually be a forensic pathologist. And that's what I wanted to be until really I started college. And then I decided, oh my God, I realized I would be trapped. I would have to stay in South Florida for 12 years, which I did not want to stay there for 12 years. And then also have to rely on my parents because 12 years of college, you know? And so I came out because I was already living on my own. So I was in school for like 6 months and I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm going to be stuck here. But that's what I wanted to do. I had whole science projects and everything in high school about that. And I still find it to be very fascinating just because it kind of combines. There's like detective work, you know, detective, you're finding clues on a body. There's surgery and also the psychology that's involved with, you know, if you think about like the psychology of a criminal, if it's a criminal, you know, case, which, yeah, forensic pathology. So I always found that to be really fascinating, but that wasn't my path.
I'm impressed that you listen to yourself, right? Because I now I know there's ages and stages that there could be life or career transitions normally and naturally, right? So one of those is that 15 to 18, then around 22 to 26, then every 7 to 10 years afterwards. But a lot of times people don't, especially in the younger ages, they kind of override of their gut feelings or their intuition about something because they feel like, oh, well, I have to do this because I just decided, or everybody's counting on me or something of the sort. And you were starting to tune in to yourself even more so and projecting what that life could look like and taking advantage of that. Wait, I don't think that this is something that I actually want to do. I don't think this is my path. Yet you still had these inklings. So this adventure, this desire for adventure, this desire for traveling, this desire for doing other things was already starting to be present and trying to be in one place for a long period of time that you didn't necessarily choose to go to that place. You just came to that place. You're like, yeah, no, not for me. So that's very awesome. Now then, what did you transition into after you're like, yeah, no, not that? And then what did you choose for that next phase?
I took, I believe, 1 year off of school. It might have been a year and a half. And then I almost didn't go back for a while, which could have been a mistake. A close friend of mine passed away in the Iraq War in a very strange way because it was an area where there had never attacks before. And he did contracts, you know, he's a Marine. And so he did contracts and he was opening a photography studio. And I was just like, don't go back there because like, I just need to go one more time, get this money. And it was a crazy thing, like guarding a diplomat and car bombing in a place where that never happened before. It was literally the first one. So I was so distraught and I really was going to take more time off. But thankfully my guidance counselor at the school, I went there for a meeting. She called me, like begged me to come in and just said, please don't take more time off, you know, like take a little bit more time off while you're grieving, but come back. And she lost a lot of friends in the Vietnam War. So she was able to relate to me. So I still thank her to this day that she encouraged me to enroll in that next semester.
Yeah, she met you with compassion and showed a genuine care and concern for you and also was able to relate.
Yeah.
So then what did you end up getting your degree in then?
Yeah. So actually this was one of the hobbies I skipped actually. I always loved fashion and I ended up going back to school for fashion merchandising. So I went to an arts university and it's really funny because, you know, in high school, everyone knew you couldn't touch my fashion magazines. If I bought a fashion magazine, no one can touch it until I've read the whole thing. And I would never even surprise myself by skipping ahead. I had to go page by page. It was like a whole ritual. And then I would annotate in the margins and add notes and things like that, things I would change or...
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's really funny
cool.
because, yeah, one of my high school best friends, she wanted to study fashion merchandising, which is essentially everything in the fashion industry except for design. So you're talking copywriting, which I ended up going into, store planning, styling, like literally everything, merchandising, buying, store planning. And I didn't know what it was. And she told me in high school and I said, what's that? And I was like, oh, okay, it's interesting. And it's so interesting because she ended up doing something else. And then I ended up doing that years later. So it was just a very strange, like full circle moment. But I loved it. I really loved my school. I love the creative environment. I could sit down in the computer lab and I liked it because I remember I didn't have a Mac at the time and I really wanted a Mac. And we had all Macs with the giant screens in our computer labs, and I would go there. And you could be sitting next to a graphic design student, next to a visual art student. So there's just the conversations that were going on there. It was so, I found it to be so fulfilling, you know, like there was always a creative conversation going on. There was always something inspiring happening. So I loved spending time on campus too.
Yeah. I'm curious, the notes that you used to annotate about the things that you saw in the fashion magazine, were they about the fashion or were they about how the person was showing up? Like how you thought they could be presenting. Like, I'm just kind of curious because one of the things that you went into in one of the chapters is about helping people in personal branding. And of course, that's going to be like how they're looking and showing up. So I'm just like, was that seed there then too? It must have been an earlier version of that.
It could also just be like, you know, it wasn't always just the fashion. So it could be an article and then I'm seeing, I don't know, a villa in Lake Como. And I'm thinking about, you know, what are the things that I like about this? What elements of this could be brought into my everyday life, the way that I'm living? So I was always just thinking about, I guess beauty always inspired me, but it was deeper than that, like art, culture. It was very interesting. I would take notes about places I want to travel to one day, and I hadn't been to any of those places. So it's really interesting because I ended up living on my own as a young adult at 19 in South Beach, and my friends were from all around the world. At that time, South Beach was a, you know, cultural, we called it a village, the people who lived there, because only 23 blocks. And so, you know, you go to the grocery store on a rainy day and you see like 15 people, you know, but people were from all over. You had friends who were like snowbirds. So I had friends from, you know, Canada. I had friends from across Europe, South America, you know, the Caribbean. So it was really interesting because I would have conversations with friends and they assumed I was well-traveled. And someone would ask me if I went somewhere. I was like, I've never been there, but I just knew about it because I'd read so many things. So it was very interesting. I always kind of felt like a citizen of the world, even before I'd only been to like a few countries. So.
And so to that point, had you been out of the US? Like, and where had you traveled?
I went back and forth to Jamaica a lot, and I did 1 year in boarding school there. My family's from there, so that's why I went back and forth so many times. Only the Bahamas up until that time as well. The UK early, well, I was still in college, yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so not much travel then, but I felt like it was so strange. I felt like I'd been everywhere. But I guess also having friends from different places, you just learn so many nuances about different cultures. Yeah, so it was strange because people would always ask me, like, where are you from? My accent wasn't like I was from Florida. I didn't have an accent that people would say sounds like a New Yorker. But I had friends from so many different places, you know, Germany, France. And I think it just became just like kind of hodgepodge, kind of like a hybrid kind of like accent. Where I was like, I don't know. I would just explain, I don't know. I know people from everywhere. I don't know what this accent is I have, but...
It's
there
mine.
It is. Yeah. And then it changed later, of course, when I went to Montenegro.
And so after you graduated, then what? Or did you do any sort of internships or did you have any initial paid jobs doing what? Like as you're growing up? Yeah.
I love your questions. This is a fun memory lane. I had to volunteer a lot to graduate. So that was fun. I volunteered with one of my professors. He was a top fashion stylist. So that was fun. I got to go on the shoots. And then I volunteered backstage a lot as a dresser, which a lot of people don't know what that is. So fashion models need help getting dressed backstage when there's a fashion show because you're on this timing schedule. And there's also prep before the fashion show because, you know, you either want to sell the goods that they're wearing, or they're gonna have to travel a lot and be used for photo shoots and other fashion shows. So they need to be in good condition. So like we would get there early and we're like putting tape on the bottom of the shoe so that they don't get ruined and things like that, you know.
So how did Montenegro even get on your radar and what was the draw for Montenegro?
So, since I had friends from everywhere, I had friends from that region and I always thought it was really appealing, like I would like to visit. But then I met my boyfriend, he was from Montenegro, and I learned so much more about everything there, the culture, and I even liked the language, and I started learning it slowly. So when I finally went on vacation, it was really amazing. I was like, I didn't want to come back. I just had such a good time. So people saw the pictures and videos I shared, and they were asking me about vacation when I came back, and I literally couldn't talk about it. I was just like, I don't want to talk about it because it was just really difficult for me to come back. Because again, the theme is I always wanted to leave. I always planned to leave Miami. I love it for vacation, but I didn't want to live there.
Gotcha.
And so once I went there, it was just like, oh my gosh, how do I go back home? So my boyfriend and I agreed to go back the next summer to move out, put our things in storage, see how it works with both of our businesses, stay like the whole summer as like a summer vacation. And then after the summer, see how it goes with our businesses, see if we even want to stay, and then go from there. So
And you had your copywriting, and you could do that from anywhere, really.
Right.
So that was your plan?
Right.
Yeah.
There are a lot of well-off people for sure in Montenegro, but the general like salary is much lower than in the US, you know, like for an everyday person, or say an average salary. So when foreigners move there, so yeah, it made things much easier, like to have the independence, to have your own money coming in and not having to, you know, get like a work visa and all that kind of stuff.
That's a good point. Okay, so then what happened?
We went there the next summer and we had a magical day. It was the first time I got to meet his parents in person because we didn't get to see them on our last trip. And we'd had video calls from Miami, and we just had a magical day in the capital. And then we went to the seacoast to our friend's condo he gave us for the week. And it was like just a really perfect night. And I remember up until that point in my life, it was first time I'd felt like everything was perfect. There were no problems. Like life was just really wonderful and everything felt aligned. And the place was huge. So he asked if he could invite his parents, and I was like, oh, yeah, please. So we called his parents and we're trying to convince them to leave because the capital of Montenegro in the summer, it's like Rome. It's very, very hot and hard to breathe in the summer. So they were thinking about it. And then, yeah, it was just beautiful. Dinner, we went to dinner, there was live music, and nobody was dancing, but of course, how Bodo was, he just took my hand and we started dancing. And it was, just everything was perfect. But unfortunately, I woke up in the morning and he did not wake up. So he passed away in his sleep from a clot. And, you know, my life as I knew it up until that point was certainly over. It was the start of a new life.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. So you're feeling that everything is falling into place. You're in this beautiful Montenegro that you had, after you had seen it, you're like, this is where I want to be. You have the relationship, you have the family experience, the start of your beautiful next chapter of your life, and then not.
And then not. It was like nightmare. I remember just nothing felt, you know, waking up and feeling like I was in a really, really sick nightmare. It was just so confusing and shocking and traumatizing. In contrast to, you know, people told me, well, look, he got to pass away peacefully in his sleep next to you. And I think that's great. And I'm grateful for that, you know. But it's really interesting to see that contrast because I woke up and saw him there like that. It's like essentially the second day of our new life, you know. And I couldn't process it well because I didn't have any tools up until that point in my life. I didn't meditate. I didn't do anything. So anything difficult I'd gone through, I just kind of like, you know, drag that with me, or just like, you just keep moving forward, right?
Oh, did you try to stuff it down or pretend like it didn't happen? I used to try to stuff like what did you do before? Like,
no, I threw myself into the grave. It was too much. Everyone's trying to tell me you have to like measure your emotions. You know, I didn't realize what it could do to you physically, you know, to your health. But I was just, to me, it was like my world was over for a long time. You know, I can't imagine that anything like that would be easy, no matter where somebody is in their life. Yeah. But it was really a dark period for me, very dark. And I remember there was like a long time that was kind of scary because there were like 6 months at least where everything that used to scare me, it didn't scare me anymore. And I was like, oh, this is strange, because I just felt numb. I was just like, I really didn't care. And I mean, the funeral was so hard. I remember thinking like they're taking the casket down, and I was thinking I wanted to just go in there with him. I was just done. It was really hard. He was my best friend. We did everything together, and I was just too young. In your 20s, you have nobody's telling you your partner might pass away. Somebody much older
Right.
might think that could happen someday, might have heard of that happening to a friend. And he was older than me, but still young and healthy and vibrant and had a lot more energy than me. And it was just, it was blindsiding. And so I think I was really in shock for a long time.
Were there any words that people tried to tell you that were actually helpful? Or any word? I always
Thanks for
wonder,
saying
right?
that, because there are a lot of
like-
it not helpful.
Whenever somebody passes on, it always seems very unexpected, right? It's just like, wait, I didn't realize it was going to be today or not.
True.
And yet also, as a friend or a family member or somebody who loves somebody who then experiences such a grief or a great loss, it's like, I don't know what to do to help. I don't know that I can help. I don't know what to say. I don't know what not to say. I don't know. Everything is wrong. Nothing makes sense. How can I even be there or show compassion? But like, how could somebody have even been there or shown compassion for you in a way that was actually helpful? Are there any words that could even be helpful from, like, I don't understand what to do.
Oh, I don't remember specific words, but I do really remember like the support of his family. I spent a lot of time with his parents that summer. I decided to stay in Europe. His sister, who was already a close friend of mine and still is, she's like family to me. She came there, of course. She flew there from Florida, and her daughter. And I don't remember any words, but I just remember that support, and also that we all were grieving him differently. We all had a different experience of having him in our lives, right?
Yeah.
He meant something different to all of us. But we all felt that loss and having each other. I would just say it's more like an energy thing and spending time together. Yeah.
Why did you choose to stay? Or was it even not a choice? Like you just needed to still be there?
And, I just really was not happy living in Miami. And I thought to go back now, and then there's going to be so many people who don't even know that he's passed away. I'm going to be bumping into people all the time, asking me about him. I'm going to be running errands and thinking about him. It's different thinking about him in Montenegro. We hadn't like established our daily routines there. It was a very different energy. It was more like, this is his home country. It was just very different. The other one would be like, I'm grieving. Everything reminds me of him. People, I'm going to keep bumping into people with questions. And because I was so ready to leave there, so I thought grieving is hard enough, but then to be somewhere you don't want to live, and that's just like a whole other animal. And, I've gotten closer with my family now, but I didn't need that. Our relationship wasn't such that I needed their support to go back there. That was not going to be the thing for me. So I needed to be somewhere where I was happiest. And I think it really helped, being in Montenegro, being exposed to nature so much, spending so much time in nature every single day. That was very helpful. It was still very super challenging time for me, but I know that really helped a lot. Yeah. Spending time at the beach, going, walks in the, forest and things like that. And then I got to do all of the traditions because he was Orthodox Christian. I ended up converting later, but to the same religion. We used to go to church a lot and do a lot of things at his church in Miami. So the traditions are like there's a funeral, and then there's like 3 days after that there's another gathering, and then there's 40 days later there's a gathering. So all those things that I would have missed had I gone back to, I would have done the 3-day, but I would have missed like the 40-day and things like that if I'd been in the US. So I was really happy that I stayed. And I just felt right because, my life ended. I always say the Mayan calendar is right. My life did end in 2012. That was a new life that started after he passed away. So it was like, I think it was also an easier decision because like, well, when everything is completely gone, I was just now, and now I'm just starting up. It was easier to make that my base.
Tell me more about this Mayan calendar 2012. What was that? Yeah.
You didn't hear about that?
I think I did, but then I forgot. But like, remind me now, because I'm like, wait a minute, why is this ringing a bell?
Yeah. So, well, there's like, I know you remember the Y2K thing everyone talked about.
Totally.
I was in high school when that happened, and we're like, oh, nothing happened. Everything is fine. Well, the Mayan calendar, people kept talking about in 2012 about how the Mayan calendar ends in 2012. So that's the end of the world. And it's really crazy because I'm like, actually, it did happen for me. And I actually have a lot of friends who also had life-changing, paradigm-shifting events happen in their life that year. So that's very interesting. I don't normally like ascribe to those kinds of thoughts, but I can't help but see that parallel there, really. Yeah.
So then how did you start gaining some of these tools that you now know are so transformative and helpful?
Yeah.
And then how did you move forward, or how did you start gaining some of these things that you now know are helpful?
Yes. So the community was just in the summer, and then against my, I had this thing I wanted to stay in Montenegro, but I took the advice of friends, which ended up being incorrect in hindsight, to move to Belgrade. So I ended up spending the first 2 years, half in Belgrade and then half in Montenegro. So mostly spring and winter in Belgrade, because Montenegro is very seasonal. And so they thought like, oh, you're going to be so bored, the off season, it's this and that. But it was actually, in hindsight, I should have lived there the whole year. I don't mind the quiet. And Belgrade was just kind of, it was a lot for it to be there and grieving. And, even like just the basic fact of having less sunlight during the winter. And when I moved there, my biggest client was headquartered between somewhere in Michigan and somewhere in China. So I would be on Zoom until almost 2 a.m, go to sleep, wake up, realize I'd missed all the sun, just like order food. And and so I think that also sped up the health issues I started having. I just started, my body just started getting sick all the time. And I could see I'd lost vitality. And then about 2 years in, thankfully in hindsight, I started getting all of these food allergies, and one after the other, like I'm saying, like weeks apart. And I just was just like, what's going on here? I could eat anything and not read it, before. In hindsight, it's great because my body, I had all this unprocessed grief. I thought after the first 2 years, like any stress I had to do with what was happening in my life then. But I didn't realize I was carrying all of that weight because I never really did process it outright. I felt it so intensely, and then I just kind of just kept going forward. So because of those health issues, it was nothing a doctor could help me with. A doctor, yes, somebody can go to an allergist, and maybe if they're lucky, they're taking those treatments, maybe after a few years, maybe their allergy might go away or decrease. So
right.
I was looking for alternative paths. And because of that, that's when I finally started meditating and doing yoga. And I started reading really deep and wide in that transformation space. But nothing was really, I knew I was learning things. I knew I was able to manage stress better. But I also knew there was no reason why I shouldn't be able to completely be healthy again. It took me a long time to get there. I tried everything. I mean, I flew to the Amazon for a plant medicine retreat, and the shaman told me, you'd have to come back here like 20 times to be healed. And it was not like, it was a place that didn't advertise. It was only word of mouth. So it's not even like they were just trying to like collect money, and I really think if that's the path I took, it really, now I see in hindsight, it would have taken me that long. So what really happened is the turning point was I started missing the US after almost 7 years of living in the Balkans. And LA kept popping up synchronistically for me. So a friend who's from Montenegro who lived here for a long time, she lived in both places. So she asked me if I wanted to come visit because I got married, got a divorce, and she was like, well, you don't have to be here. She's like, what? And you work for yourself. Just come visit me. So I went to visit her, and it was just to kind of scout to see if I wanted to move here. But as soon as I got off the plane, I was mostly like, okay, yeah. It just felt very like, yeah, it was not at all complicated. So I moved here pretty quickly. And that's when a lot of things changed for me. Suddenly, I still had the food allergies at that time, but the food sensitivities, almost all of them went away. I could suddenly,
Interesting.
yeah, and I was on like a vegan diet like forever. I was doing everything because like my body just was feeling like it needed as little pressure as possible because everything was something. So I could finally start eating meat again. And I was like, oh my God, I had so much more energy, and that helped. And in hindsight, later on, I would realize just because I came out of my environment, every day I was seeing the same people, I was going to the same places. So I was wearing that identity. And I would always think about, when you're having health problems, it's really hard. One of the hardest ways challenges, like blocks to healing, is that it becomes your identity. And so I saw myself it's like I was saying, I was a person who would feel like that and that and that. And if, it's at a restaurant, I have to give them like a litany of restrictions. So it was always top of mind. It's just things started changing. A lot of things changed in my life. And I continued that journey, meditation and everything. And it was now a decade since I'd been meditating. And I started doing a much more advanced form of meditation. Oh, I'm skipping something. Sorry. Right before that. So shortly before I started doing that, I ended a romantic relationship in LA. It was a very difficult relationship ending. And a very good friend of mine. So the two people I spent the most time with was that person I was in a relationship with, and then a friend of mine. And the friend, she kept saying how terrible it was, how it ended and everything. And, kind of like just pointing a finger at this person. And it was funny because I went to sleep and I woke up the next day and I thought, oh my gosh, that friendship has the same exact dynamics as that romantic relationship. So I told that friend that, and that she had to change or we're not going to be friends anymore. And she said she couldn't change because she had too many things happening in her life. So now
you have like another loss.
Another loss for my not to. But it was so freeing because I started seeing everything so clearly. And I finally understood the concept of self-love because I thought I understood it, but it was very cerebral. I didn't get it because I thought, self-love, it comes through in our actions. And I thought, how could my best friend and my boyfriend be people with like, these dynamics were just terrible. And then I realized I picked them because I had a victim mindset. So I needed to be around people who would treat me like I was a victim.
Interesting. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It was like, how did I not see this all these years? And then I realized I'd had a victim mindset since I was a child. And then when Bodo passed away, it was definitely a why me situation. I was so angry. Like, how could this happen to us? Why did this happen to us? I was angry at life, And it was so freeing though. It was jarring because like, how did I not see it all these years and working so hard to see it? So I started I found out about this more advanced form of meditation, and I basically made it my full-time job to work on inner work, personal transformation outside of my business. And I'm saying sometimes even 4 hours a day meditating and just finding all these patterns and insights. It really felt like I've been working on this so long, and if I don't figure out now, I don't know what's going to happen. It just felt like this strange urgency. And it was wonderful. And then I got to a point in my life where I'm like, oh my gosh, everything is just wonderful. My health, I reversed every food allergy except for one, and that one's weaker now. I can kind of eat something here and there and don't have to take anything. So I know that one's going to go away. And many other things were like chronic ovarian cysts. There were a 5-year bout of tendonitis I stopped treating, and then it went away. I was just meditating. And yeah, it's just wild. And so my life completely just turned around, and I got home one day and I realized, I only just stepped out of that cloud of grief. All this time, that was the grief I was carrying. And then my next thought was I have to write a book because nobody should have to, it doesn't have to take that long. We certainly need time to grieve, but a lot of people get stuck, and that's what happened to me. I didn't realize that in the transition between the early days of grief and moving forward, I didn't see the subtle signs, and so I started shrinking back. My dreams became smaller, and I internalized a lot of the pain, which then manifested into those health issues, and it affected every area of my business. Of my life, including my business, because, trying to negotiate when your confidence is shot, your self-worth is shot. It's like, it's a whole thing. And that's how I ended up writing my book. And then writing my book, it was just like, except for the editing process, it was just like, it just flowed through me because it's really this whole, everything I went through, everything I learned, it just came through. And I realized there's this roadmap. We can't avoid pain, and it's not healthy to do so, but there's no reason for us to, no matter what happens, we can always come back from it. And, it's really important to know that we can reinvent ourselves no matter what.
Now, I'm curious through all of this turmoil, all of this 10 years, and you were writing, for others, as part of your business for helping their businesses. Were you writing about your own personal experience? Like, did you keep a journal like your whole life, or did you write little quips about yourself, or did you separate and you were writing about some place or something else, but not your own experience?
I wrote for clients, so except for maybe some LinkedIn content, I didn't really write about myself. I had a friend who was urging me to write a book after Bodo passed away, and I'm so happy I didn't because it would have been a very different book, a very dark book. The world seemed so bleak to me at that time.
Yeah.
I wrote some poetry during that time, and it's just like the darkest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was just, I was just so distraught and angry about life. So I'm happy that stuff didn't, I didn't share that with the world. I shared that with people in my close circles. But that's not the message. And it's okay that I was so,
Yeah.
my optimism was, turned completely inside out, certainly during that time. It's okay. But I'm glad I didn't write a book during that time because I would have been writing from a very limited perspective. And, I was still in it, and it would have been so filled with pain. And I don't think that would have been a useful tool to have brought out into the world. Not even a tool. I think it could be dangerous to, kind of encouraging people to throw themselves into grief or pessimism, let's say.
And so the book that you did write, it's very optimistic. I've listened to it. It's amazing. And it's not like so huge that it seems impossible to get through. I feel like it's a nice, reasonable, helpful, wait, this is approachable. I think I can do this. I think I could listen to this chapter while on a walk, or I can read a chapter in a day, and I could get through this in a couple of days. But it's the type of book that there's some prompts that you give for people to kind of think about and to kind of go back to the book is dream on and to keep dreaming and imagining what they want to be able to do. And it takes time, right? So I feel like it's not just a one-time read. It's a read it, go back, do it, go back, do it some more, because I feel like each iteration is going to be a deeper, maybe more meaningful experience. Was that your intention?
Yeah, it's not meant to be intimidating, and I really wanted it to be able to resonate with as many people as possible because we all deal with loss. We all deal with setbacks, and it doesn't have to be the loss of a loved one. It can be, a business closing. It can be not getting into your dream school, you've been striving for years. It can be layoffs, And so it's really designed to be, obviously my story is in the beginning, and that is a difficult story, but it's really uplifting read. It's designed to be kind of a little fast paced in that there's some momentum to get you through there, but it's really about this journey about coming back from feeling, spending time in those difficult feelings, whatever is happening. You're not trying to blow past your feelings or sweep it under the rug, but then you are, to kind of sum up that whole path, it's like you're enriching your relationship with yourself and getting that foundation solid. And then you're getting to the point where you're feeling strong enough, confident enough, and energized where you can now start to dream big again. And you are now going to, you're in a place where you can start feeling excited about what comes next. And, that doesn't mean that you don't, obviously I'm not, I don't feel like I'm in grief, but I'm still always going to grieve Bodo, right? So it's not about you can still honor the past and move forward. And then what you also start to realize, in the case of a loss of a loved one, you start to realize they would have been thinking, what took you so long? What took you so long? Why were you living in limbo for so long? They want you to be happy. But yeah, so, the last chapter is the longest chapter, which is the funnest chapter, dreaming on, where you're learning how to dream big and you're getting, in tune with your passion and your purpose and really seeing what could be next. And everything else, it's really building yourself back up again. But I designed it to be, it doesn't feel, I think, heavy or too serious. It's serious information, but it feels relatable. And the exercise is also designed to be very approachable.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed going through that. So thank you for giving me the opportunity and for putting that out into the world. I think it's definitely going to be one of the resources that I recommend as kind of complimentary for some of the people that work with me, because it approaches in a different, a complementary way to a lot of the things. I'm trying to help people sometimes understand, like, from an assessment driven, like an objective performance-based measurement, like what are your abilities and this and that. And let's come up with a vision for your life. And there could be still some things that need a bit of healing or need a bit of exploration and dreaming beyond some of the foundational things that I have. And so I'm very happy that there's another resource that I could add to and help share the work that you've done, the transformations that you've had personally, and that I know you've helped so many others who've read your book or worked with you. So how do people work with you if they want to at this point?
Thank you for the kind words and the support. So shortly after I finished my manuscript, I was thinking about how everyone keeps talking about the importance of having a personal brand. And that's definitely true, especially since so much of the work that so many of us do is online. But the focus is usually on the external considerations, and they play a role, certainly. What does your website look like, your social feed, and things like that. But the most important aspect is actually who you are. And I realized that because, the time when I was going to make my business full time is when I was in the early days of grief. So took those first few months off, but it was still very raw. And so I combined some principles from my book, Dream On, and then my lived experience and also my copywriting and messaging strategy background to help business owners develop themselves from the inside out. So that looks like, my definition of a personal brand is the essence of who you are and how that essence is perceived. So it's working on all of that inner work, and then how you engage with yourself and others. And then we get into the more classic things like communication, positioning, and messaging. And it's really important because whether that's business owners who are afraid to be more visible and they know they need to be more visible for their businesses, or if they've reached a plateau and they realize it's not really anything I'm doing, I know it's something about me. It's really important because I think also it's very empowering, expanding our networks, getting better opportunities. That all starts with who we are and how we're showing up in the world. A lot of people are showing up as this kind of avatar of whoever that most successful person is in their field. They're just kind of mimicking what they're doing. They're speaking like them. They're posting like them. They're putting on this mask that they don't want to wear. They're terrified when they have calls with clients or when they have presentations, on Zoom, because they're putting on this role. So it's like physically exhausting. And they don't realize that they would get much further and resonate with people on a much deeper level if they actually showed up themselves. And that's really where a lot of this magic happens. Or even I gave myself an example, like negotiating better, having better boundaries with clients and things like that. The client issues I had when I first started my copywriting business, I haven't had those challenges in so many years. Like, they're just unheard of. I love all of my clients. I love, it just doesn't happen. But we attract what we are in our lives. And if we're not feeling solid, if we're not feeling sure about ourselves and our purpose, then we accept opportunities that are a bad fit. And just because we're afraid, we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what my revenue is going to be next quarter. Let me take this opportunity, even though this client doesn't respect me, or even though this is not really what I want to do. And so it's really freeing when we realize that so much of what it takes to be successful is in our hands, even in this world that has so many unknowns and so many things that are outside of our control.
Awesome. So to find you is the best place LinkedIn, your website?
I'm most active on LinkedIn. And my website, you can find everything there, my book and my programs, chanoainez.com.
Awesome. And now, from this vantage point, how do you define authentic success for yourself?
Ooh. Authentic success is a success that aligns with my purpose and my values, but also my passion. I can't just check those boxes. It doesn't make me feel good, and is it really in line with the life that I want to live? And I just want to make a note on values, because a lot of us mention values, but then we don't actually know what all of our values are. So I urge all of your listeners to go home and write those down and keep them handy and screen everything through that list.
Thank you so very much for all of your time, for sharing more of your backstory, your transformational stories, and this beautiful book, and the ways that you just really bring your joy, your light, your transformation to the world and make others also believe that it can be possible. So thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Your Next Success with Dr. Carolyn Sengel. Remember, authentic success is yours to define and includes aligning your career to support the life you want.